sketch to technical sheet. Before we start, Isley, lead us in prayer.
So let us put ourselves in the most holy presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance as we go through this workshop to help further our knowledge and skills in fashion. May our minds be enlightened and our hearts be filled with love and happiness. Bless and protect us from evil and from the coronavirus that is still prevalent here in our community. Give us the strength to continue growing and evolving into a better person and an even better learner and worker. We ask this of you through Christ our Lord. Amen. Saint John Baptist de la Salle, pray for
Pray for
us.
us.
Saint Benedict Romanson, pray for
Pray
us.
for us.
Live Jesus in our hearts forever.
Forever.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Isley. So before we start, let me go through a few items. If you have any questions for our speaker, feel free to type it in our chat box below. We'll have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Also, a recorded version of this webinar will be available. The link will be shared by your respective professors. We will also have a gallery photo at the end, so please join us and have your camera on. Okay, now let me present our presenter, Ms. Trina Peña Florida. She is an alumna of our program, Homegrown. She joined us as a faculty in 2019 and currently handles CAD, branding, and portfolio development subjects. She was awarded a full academic scholarship for a master's program in accessories design at Domus Academy in Milan, Italy, where she specialized in design and product development of leather goods, jewelry, and footwear. She has also worked as an accessories and footwear designer for the local retail industry for more than 8 years. Her other experiences include production design projects, curatorial work, and research on costume conservation with a focus on Philippine dress and traditional weaving culture. At the moment, she is taking her master's in anthropology. Thank you for being here, Trina. Over to you.
Thank you, Jinga. Thank you, Miss Jingay. Glad to be here, everyone. So we have a lot to cover. Maybe if we have time later, I might do a short demo lang on how to create a flat sketch in Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so let's share my screen. Okay. So this webinar is a tech pack translating fashion sketch to text sheet. Okay. So before we start, this is just a quote. Fashion is architecture. It is a matter of proportions. So if fashion is architecture, your tech pack is the blueprint of your designs, of your garment. So may it be apparel or accessories, tech packs are um, basically parang it's your recipe. Okay. So today we will cover the basics of putting together a tech pack, starting with the basic component, which is the flat sketch, and the difference between a fashion illustration. Okay, then the under flat sketch, we will discuss the different ways to draw your flats, the do's and don'ts, and the details that you have to look out for. So then I also explain the difference between a technical sheet and a tech pack. All right. So the elements and information that is needed in the tech pack and some examples from the industry and different levels of difficulty. Okay. So as you can see here, these are both fashion illustrations, diba, for presentation. But these drawings serve different purposes in design and product development. So this one is a fashion sketch. Okay, and this one is a flat sketch. So a fashion sketch is a creative visualization of a garment, its details, and of course its proportions. And it shows the designer's personal style. So very stylized, and usually ito yung what you're used to when you're designing, okay? The other one naman, this one is a flat sketch. So these are made up of technical drawings or flats that shows technical information and illustrates the exact proportions and details of garments. So kung sa in your fashion illustrations, very stylized, it depends on how your signature drawing style as well. You can see here na sa flat sketch, it has to be detailed. Okay, it has to look like the real garment. Okay, so you can see here na may zipper, yung closures, the stitching, all right, and the different layers. Um, fashion sketch are very stylized. Ang flats, very 2D. So, I always think yung flat sketch para siyang paper doll dresses or yung clothes. Very flat siya. So, now that we have established the difference between the two, we will focus more on the flat sketches and its purpose and why it's crucial to draw flats properly. Okay. So, what is the purpose of a flat sketch and a tech pack? Right? So we'll just go over this very briefly. So a tech pack is actually short for technical packet. Okay. We will get to the definition and parts of the tech pack later in the presentation. Pero first, let's start with the why of it all. Like, why do we do this? Diba? Parang before when I was starting out as a designer, lagi ko tinatanong, bakit ko ba kailangan yung tech pack? Okay, so this chart shows you who the document is for and why getting it right will benefit you, the designer, and your business. Okay, so it can help your business. So a tech pack is a communication tool between the designer, the maker, and the factory. So it is the number one reference for your product designs. Now we start with you as the designer. So we said kanina that the tech pack is the blueprint of your design. And naturally, you have the ownership of the garment because nga, you are the designer. So there is accountability or you are accountable sa information on how to create the product. And it's very important to put everything in writing in case something doesn't go to plan. So you have a record. It's a documentation basically. Okay, then it goes after you've printed your tech pack, it goes to the merchandising stage. All right, so it goes to either your buyer or product officer, where usually they bring the design to product development and sampling stage. Na. So having a document with all the information makes the process faster. So this enables a speed to market approach. Next would be, then it goes to prototyping. So because sa tech pack, you've written down all the materials and so it becomes more efficient and the supplier or vendor can give you an accurate costing agad. Okay? Kasi usually sa tech pack, merong bill of materials and then you will include photo reference as well. So um, mas faster din yung prototyping. Okay? So once all the pre-prod samples are approved, you now go to the manufacturing process. So if the information is accurate, mas shorter yung pre-production development. Okay, so shorter yung lead time and efficient production time. Then the last step is the quality control. So usually the spec sheets are uploaded in a system. Kung it's a big retail company, meron siyang system where you upload the technical sheets and it is then forwarded sa quality control inspector. Okay, so they use this as a basis to check if the items are up to standard. So if complete all the accessories, branding, labels, packaging, then magpapass siya through quality control easier. So later I'll show you the parts of a tech pack that is important in quality control inspection. So basically, the tech pack, as you can see here, it's an internal document. Okay, so ano lang siya, it's between the designer, the brand, and then the supplier. You don't have to share the info with clients or the public. Not necessarily you have to post it sa portfolio kasi usually there is a copyright disclaimer also kasi nandun lahat yung tricks or basically yun nga, it's the blueprint of the design. So may mga copyright disclaimers. Okay, pero for this webinar, let's focus on the product development stage first. So if we deconstruct a tech pack, here are the different parts. Okay, so a flat sketch, okay, is a manual or digital technical illustration of your garment. Okay, garment lang siya. Siya yung 2D drawing. A technical sheet that is also called a specification sheet. So it shows all the measurements of your flat sketch with garment and grading rules, okay, and include sizing also. Then next is the technical packet or the tech pack, which is a multi-page document that shows every single detail of your garment. Okay, so let's start with flat sketch, or what I say, the building block of a spec sheet or a tech sheet. It is a manual or digital illustration, flat drawing, or an interpretation of your design. So usually yung format niya, it's recommended na vector file. So it is a high resolution image na format, which is easier to download and resize. So the image should be big, so it is easy to see. The construction details with front and back views and side views if needed. It can be in color for line sheets only. Pero in technical sheets, it has to be in grayscale or black and white lang. Okay, so there are different flat sketching styles. So these are in order of the most difficult to the least difficult to create. So freehand drawing, so ito yung basic natin. Actually, we all start with freehand drawing yung flat sketches. So for sure, you've all done this na sa illustration classes. So traditional pen and paper style. So mas time consuming siya also, and then especially now that everything is digital or online, pag you draw the freehand sketch, then you have to scan it pa, 'di ba? To ano siya, convert it into a digital image. Okay, so next naman is the computer aided illustrations. So this is what it looks like. Okay. Um, So Adobe Illustrator is my personal go-to because ease of access, of course, and Lectra naman can be used also, yung Kaledo, of course, since we have this naman sa CAD 1 classes. No? Okay, and then the um, easiest resource naman to get flat sketches is yung online resources, such as the WGSN Digital Library. Alright, since we have access naman sa school, so take advantage of that. And then yung Adobe stock images or flat sketches as well, although it is a paid subscription. So there are free resources online also, but it takes time to look for editable high-res resources. And also not sure because you have to edit also pa rin, depending on your design. So you can see the difference between the three. So meron ding different styles. Wala naman actually set style when you create a tech pack. So makikita nyo here na different yung CAD illustration with how WGSN illustrates their flat sketches. But later I'll show you yung why this is not really parang best practice yung ganitong style. So let's say na we don't have access to WGSN. So you have to create your own flats. So a croquis, as you all know naman in fashion illustration, is a very useful guide. So same measurements with the fashion illustration croquis, which is yung basic 9 heads. So the difference lang is the pose. Okay, so flat din yung pose ng croquis. Basic lang na feet apart, tapos yung arms are extended lang away from the body. Okay, so wala yung naka-fold yung elbow or yung nakataas yung paa, ganyan. Or naka-twist yung body, just flat lang front view. Okay, so this is a flat sketch croquis for a generic figure. This croquis is for dresses, skirts, and fitted silhouettes. So a croquis can differ naman depende on the company or you as a designer din, okay? Some companies use croquis na one elbow is folded. Pero remember lang na one thing you have to remember lang na it has to be proportioned yung body, yung croquis nyo. Okay? So let's stick to yung 9 heads na technique. And the figure shouldn't be posed or may, kita nyo here, walang muscles or curves. Okay? Para lang siyang talagang paper doll. So this is another version which can be used for looser silhouettes. So you can also guideline yung corresponded points of measurements like your dress forms, no? Na parang may style tapes siya. So these are for outerwear and pants or jumpsuits. Okay, so now let's yung do's and don'ts or best practices on how to properly illustrate flat drawings. So remember this is your blueprint, so the details must be visible. Okay, so it has to include all the details, your darts, seams, seam lines, stitch lines, vents, gathers, yokes, buttons. Like for example here, yung mga buckles, any accessories, kailangan siya here. It has to be shown, right? Next is you have to be mindful of the thickness of lines or yung weights ng lines. So here are the usual or recommended line weights to use for different applications. So for Adobe Illustrator, it is recommended na 1 point yung weight ng lines, yung outlines, outer outlines. And then for the seam lines and accent lines, 0.75. And then yung stitch lines or yung dotted lines, 0.5. Okay, with Lectra, care of Miss Roxy, 0.8 mm. Okay, for the outlines and seam lines, 0.3 mm for the stitch lines and fastenings. And then yung details, same lang, 0.3 or 0. With freehand or traditional drawing naman, with using a tech pen, 0.8 mm tip, okay na siya for the outlines, and 0.01 tip for the stitches, details, and seam lines. Okay, and then another correct way to illustrate is dapat may multiple views. All right, so draw multiple views, front, back, and or side views to show details of the garment. For shoes naman and accessories, usually we include a quarter or isometric view, very important. And then you can also include interior views if you think it is relevant to the design. Like for example, this one also. So sa back, hindi siya flat na flat. Parang there's na-illustrate yung lining inside to show na there's an accent. Okay? To show na important yung detail here inside the coat. Okay, so flat sketches, make it flat. Literally flat dapat yung drawing. So when you parang flat lay siya or like yung product shots that you see in online stores. 'Di ba? Flat yung shirt without the wrinkles. So here we don't have to include yung volumetric or artistic effects. Okay, like for example, this one is the correct way to create a flat sketch ng leggings or stirrups. And then ito yung merong makita nyo, di ba, may muscles, may curves, may draping lines, may, okay. So with sleeves naman, again, ito yung correct way, which is flat. As opposed to this one na makikita niyo yung interior ng yung loob ng cuff. Okay? And then for waistbands naman, the inner part of the back waistband should peak a bit lang, like this one. Either flat, na hindi kita yung back, or just peaking a bit lang. So it doesn't have to show the whole thing. Like for example, this one and this. Okay, kasi you have the back part naman for that. And then you have the detailed sketches pa for the other pages na for that. Okay, so since it's flat, in terms of shading and color, avoid using, as much as possible, avoid using colors. So there is a sheet or a place for colored flats, which I will show later. So avoid adding shadows. Okay, so flats actually flats that are colored and shows movement, like ito mga artistic pleating na to. Ang tawag doon ay floats. So it is the creative or mas stylish version ng flat. Okay? Upgraded version of a flat. Next is you have to pay attention to the center front. So an example here, so shirt center front, you can see here yung correct way is for the buttons na nagla-line up siya sa center front. As opposed to this one na yung placket, okay, nandun siya sa left side. Alright, so dapat center front. So again, with proportions and yung actual construction of a garment, please keep in mind when you're creating your flat sketches. So for trousers naman, center front. So same din, okay, the center front ng pants as opposed to this one na nasa gitna na siya, tumatama na siya dun sa zipper fly. Okay, next would be the same then with trim details like buttonhole directions. It is important to also show yung accurate or yung what you ano yung closest in real life as possible. Okay, so ito X tong nasa gitna. Okay, kasi usually naman 'di ba yung button di naman siya nagsistay sa gitna. Okay, so it's either left or right yung direction niya. And then the zipper puller direction should be also accurate with how you construct a garment. Okay, so yung zipper puller direction, unless siguro meron kayong gustong ipakita dito, pero I recommend na dapat nakasara yung zipper. Right? So, and then next would be to remove extra lines. Basta no extra lines, remove unnecessary line and heavy outlines. Take note also of the recommended line weight. So you can see yung difference ng ito na thicker yung outline and then super madaming stylist or volumetric effect. Like for example, sige, flowy or napaka-thin ng fabric, pero you don't have to show that. Okay na yung dito yung ruching because of the garter. Pero yung dito sa pants or yung papakita niyo pa yung flow ng fabric, unnecessary na siya. Alright. So, then we go with seams and stitches. So show all the seam lines like this one, so up to the shoulder. Avoid broken lines. Okay. Again, take note then on how you would construct a garment in yung actual construction ng garment. And then the side seams, okay, recommended that you show the side seams as opposed to this one. And then this is the correct way. Nakita nyo dito sa side. Kahit a thin line lang. Next would also be the shape of the collar or yung collar on the shirt. Okay, so ito makita nyo yung continuous curve na nagko-connect siya sa shoulder as opposed to this one na very flat. Okay, and then makita nyo din also the proportion of yung sa inside of the collar. Okay, kasi may collar, yun din, as usual, construction of the garment, if in real life ba may ganitong collar inside. And then lastly, of course, it's all about the proportions. So make sure you draw the flats properly. So the croquis is key here talaga. So indispensable tool siya for flat drawings. With garment parts must be drawn properly and in proportion to your actual garment. So in short, this is dapat scaled down version to ng garment. So dapat the end result or the output must be identical to the actual garment as you can see here as opposed to this one, 'di ba, na nakita niyo extended when you see here dito, pag in-extend niyo 'to, hindi na siya kasing haba and also the width ng sleeves is very different. Okay? So sa pairings and coordinates also should be proportional. So this is the correct way. Okay? So since coordinate siya, pwedeng same size siya, kunwari small. So dapat it reflects also sa waist, as you can see here, and yung width ng hips. As opposed to this one, na sobrang laki or oversized no upper garment as opposed to sa bottoms. Okay? So, in the flat sketch stage pa lang, you would know if your garment will be how it would look, kung feasible ba yung itsura niya, 'di ba, yung proportions niya. So you can gauge na at this stage if you have to make adjustments. So let's move to the next stage of the tech pack, which is the technical sheet or also known as a spec sheet. Okay, so these are drawings or images of product for measurement reference. So it has to be recommended as printable and editable format. So it has to be clear and an accurate representation of your design. All detailed measurements with points of measurement instructions should be included. Measurements with grading rules, especially for apparel. The flat sketch is in grayscale or black and white, and the design and layout of the sheet can be flexible depending on the needs. So there is no hard and fast rule or a set template sa layout and design of a technical sheet. And layout varies from company to company naman. And in other countries, different din yung templates. Yeah. Basta all the elements are on the sheet, you're good to go. So, but the recommended or usual paper size is A4. So, depende naman. Pwede rin kayong mag-legal size. Okay. So, this is the breakdown of a technical sheet. Okay, so this is page number 1 pa lang of a tech pack. So, let's go through this one by one. Okay, so start tayo with the inserting your brand name and logo, of course, kasi this is for copyright reasons as well. So when inserting your logo, dapat ano rin siya, proportion siya readable, okay? Para kita agad ng supplier na it's from this brand. Okay? And then you have to include the basic information about the garment, like the usual style code, product name, description, the designer, of course, the deadline, what is the sample size, and if you have the name of the supplier na rin, you have to include that as well. And then you can mark down if this is an initial spec sheet or initial tech sheet or a final specification sheet. Okay. Next is the flat sketch na. So this side would show the different views. So front view and then the back view. So it should show the construction details. You can see here the seam lines also. Right? And then if you have a logo or parang embroidered branding sa garment, you have to show it's a flat sketch as well. So you have to show all the measurements here. So you can see here na yung window, 'di ba parang for all the points of measurement, very cluttered kung dito nyo ilalagay yung different measurements. Mas nakakagulo siya. So there is a section here which shows the measurements. So you list down all the points of measurement and then the sizes, available sizes, plus the allowance. And then circle yung sample size na lang. So ito yung different grading measurements as well. Okay, so show points of measurements, grading, and allowance. Okay, next is you can include also additional information that is not obvious or cannot be drawn. Okay, like for example, yung stitch per inch or yung SPI, lagay nyo dito, description of the buttons, etc. Yung seams, types of seams, pwede rin. Then you list down all the fabric materials and color used. So preferably the parts and then the composition, very important. And then yung description of the fabric. So this is for the sourcing or prototyping purposes then. Okay, and then state which fabric and color the flat drawing represents. So ito na yung colorways. So main fabric equals the main color. Second fabric equals the accent number 1. So you can actually develop your own, eventually you can develop your own system. Pero this is a basic lang, basic way how to code your color. So usually color 1, 2, 3 yung colorways, or it can be a separate SKU. And then we use Pantone codes. Okay, so the usual paper, cotton, ano ba, polyester, if yun yung ginagamit. And then the color name. So it will depend also on the system of the brand or the company. So you can include swatches or samples when possible if you have. And of course, very important to include a disclaimer or a confidential notice. Alright? So it means sabi natin na it is because it is an internal document and owned siya, copyrighted by you or the brand or the company. So lagyan niyo ng disclaimer or notice for the suppliers. Alright. So this is page 1 of a tech pack. Then we move on to the actual tech pack or technical packet. So again, a tech pack is a multi-page document or a guideline provided by designers to manufacturers and factories. So this is the first step in the production process. So again, walang standard template and companies have different layouts. As long as all of these, like the spec sheet or the technical sheet, the details, colorways, trims and labels, and artworks are included. And usually there is a common language naman between designers, companies, and suppliers. So nagva-vary talaga yung styles. Okay? But remember, these are the basic elements of a tech pack pa lang. Okay, so later I will show you how detailed an industry tech pack or a prod book can be. But for your CREA class, this will do for now. Okay, itong mga pages. So again, the tech pack should be printable and editable. So meron kang para may hard copy and then soft copy that you can edit, especially pag may revision. So again, same page. First page is the technical sheet. Okay, so remember to insert a visible and not pixelated logo. And then this is where the attention to detail trait na usually we put or we write down sa resume will be tested. Okay, for real talaga. You have to be detail uh, oriented. May pagka-obsessive compulsive in filling up all these details. Okay. So just to share lang, when I was starting, I had to redo 3 times yung isang spec sheet because I missed some details. Kahit yung color name or the Pantone code. Okay, so and I had to reprint every time. But eventually you learn that when you learned, it became easier na. But it will take time, of course. Basta you have to be mindful na all the details are complete and accurate. Kasi a minor quote-unquote mistake for us could cause delays and of course money for the companies. So kahit ba minor na, ay, we forgot to change this kasi na-copy-paste natin yung color or Pantone code. 'Di ba? It might cause delay or reprinting kasi mababasa ni supplier na wala, kung ano yung mabasa dito ni supplier, yun yung gagawin niya, basically. So, page 2 naman are details and colorways. So again, you retain the header for all pages and the branding. And then this one, you add na the colorways. Okay, so ito na yung colored versions of your flats. So you also show the color and fabric references for the different combinations. And the references for garments, including color of the threads and trims. Okay, this page can be in color. Okay, and then you can enlarge special construction details here, like for example, may contrast fabric on color sa lining, yung measurements of your pocket, if may branding, you have to show it as well. You have to show the button or yung button hole if contrast color siya. So you have to show trims, seam, and other details with samples attached. Okay, possible din siya. So you can create another sheet when or as needed. So for artwork and labels, so this is the third page. So this can be in color as well. Um, so artwork and images with materials and references for finishes. Actual sizes, color, and specification details of your artwork. And then kung sa artwork sizes, it have to be exactly right. So the printers or suppliers or the factories kasi usually use this to create your artwork. Okay, so another option then if you have to be detailed would be the labels placement and the packaging specification. Okay, so this is the page and yung branding and label placement actually usually used na siya sa retail companies pag may multiple stores or wider distribution or if you're exporting. So this is what the QC inspector actually checks. So yung packaging, and then yung if yung correct labels are attached. So very important when you are exporting or supplying for an overseas client. Especially this one, yung care labels and yung country of origin and material composition. Okay, pero for a startup or a designer, you don't need to be as detailed as this one, as this page. So pwedeng i-forgo nyo na tong labels, packaging section. Pwedeng diretso na kayo sa artwork. Okay? So this is the artwork sheet naman. So what you can include instead of the packaging and branding is the artwork sheet, especially if you have custom fabrics that need to be produced or kung may special graphic print that needs to be printed. So you can insert a thumbnail of your design para to help the factory or the printer identify your design, and then the black and white outline of your artwork or pattern. So again, you have to include the actual size or yung artwork. Okay? And then yung exact sizes, color proportions, and details. So be as detailed as possible kahit yung, for example, ito weave, yung example natin. So lagay nyo na yung material composition and then color reference as guide for the printer or weaver. And then include references to your high-res editable file or your soft copy. So again, you can also include an extra sheet, especially for large artworks. Okay. So, so this is an example of a basic tech pack. So very entry-level tech pack. Itong 3 pages na to. Okay. So in the next segment or section, I'll show you the different levels of difficulty of putting together a tech pack. Pero before that, okay, so interesting statistic. So real world fact, over 50% of a designer's life is spent drawing flat sketches and putting together technical packs. So this is a quote from a fashion retail industry designer. Pero very serious, in a retail or manufacturing setting, it is the designer's job to create tech packs. So the actual conceptualization and designing, usually sandaling part lang yan. So most of the time, you will be elbow deep in tech packs. And hopefully, syempre, pag hindi ka lucky, so may revisions pa. So that is one thing you have to avoid. Kaya dapat you develop yung attention to detail para iwas tayo sa revisions and yung accuracy. Okay? So if happy ka na with the spec sheet, the buyer is happy, suppliers are happy, you can move on na to designing. So I'll show you why later bakit 50% ng designers like for example in my experience, talagang most of the time spec sheet talaga ang kaharap ko. Okay? So I'll show you later. Okay. So the different samples ng tech pack. So we have yung design technical sheets or first, entry level yung really easy lang siya na part, yung design technical sheet. So usually this is the first stage, ang initial technical sheets for prototyping. The second batch of samples naman are industry technical packet. So mas complicated, which has more pages and more information. And lastly, yung production book. So this is the complete blueprint of your design. So from flat sketch to bill of materials to sewing and production instructions. This production book naman, you will encounter na in your apparel production classes. Okay, so this is an example ng really basic technical sheet. So from sketch to tech pack, meron lang siyang fashion sketch, flat sketches, basic measurements. Yun pala, it depends din sa, ano ba to, if metric or ano ba yung US system yung gagamitin nyo. Okay, kung CM ba or inches. Okay, so you have to check with your suppliers also. And then description. So pwede rin kayo maglagay ng actual swatches. So you can also insert actual photo references of accessories and construction details. So you can see here na different yung template niya and different yung style ng croquis. Okay, but you can see na tama din yung proportions and flat naman yung for the most part yung jacket. Okay, and the pants. So this one naman, I'll show you the progression. So from fashion illustration, from sketch to tech pack. So here's a work, sample work by Magda Richard. So ito yung fashion illustration niya, hand-drawn with the hand-drawn flat sketch, yung float, or yung colored flat sketch. And this is how she designed her technical sheet. So it's less details compared to our template, but the measurements are still here. And she separated yung front and back views. Okay? Which maybe kasi dahil complicated yung design niya. So may additional page siya. So use additional sheets naman as needed. But nakita niyo rito na very minimal lang yung details. Okay. So now we go from toile to flat sketch to tech pack. So for example, your design process, you start with draping your toile. Tapos, saka nyo siya ilagay sa flat sketch. So, I'll show you, ito yung toile, then the flat sketch, how you would translate it, even the back part. Okay. And then you create your tech pack. So, ito yung same style natin kanina, which is the long sleeve shirt. Okay. Next, we move on to the sheet dress. So this is the toile, and then the flat sketch with the dart, the back part, and then this is how you create the the technical pack. So you see yung points of measurement, okay? So you can be as detailed as possible. Since the dress I designed here has contrast lining, you have to show it's a drawing. Okay, so you see here na merong colorway na printed linen, so you have an artwork sheet. So here, yun nga, so may contrast lining here, so you have to show it also sa colorway. Yung contrast lining and what type or what color of or material you used for the lining. Okay, so colored flat sketches are also used for your line sheets. Okay, because it shows the available color combinations. So this one naman, so of course, when working with templates, it gets easier in time, but be mindful of the details, especially when you're working with an existing template. So so you can see here na may changes ako na ginawa, like the placement ng label, iba from the shirt. Okay. Since the material is printed, we include the artwork sheet. So one black and white and one colored version as a guide for the printer. And very helpful then to attach or include the file name of your pattern file. So, depende rin sa supplier. Minsan, some of the suppliers I've worked with, they ask us to print the actual size of the artwork kasi they trace the artwork directly. So, instead of using the digital file. So, that's one thing to remember. Then, not all suppliers have the same standards, methods, and requirements. So, we move on naman sa circle skirt. Okay, so here, this is the back view. And then here naman is an example if we want to use an existing fabric para sa design. So I included a swatch or photo. And then the second page, you can include or you can insert either a photo reference or a larger swatch of the existing fabric with all the details like yung supplier or product code para easier siya for sa sourcing. Okay. This is the labels placement and wala siyang artwork page. We move on naman to the pants. So for pants, you can show the interior pockets here. Okay yun. Okay, so you can show the interior pockets, parang x-ray siya ng trousers and show the seam finishes, seam bindings, back pocket. Okay, yung mga details like belt loop, back buttons, front buttons, okay, to be used. And also, a tip lang pala, like for example sa pants, kaya rin we discourage using yung unnecessary lines kasi baka ma-mistake ni supplier for a stitch or seam line siya. For example, this one, yung sample ko, I realized na meron siyang line dito. So baka mapagkamalan ni pattern maker na, may cut dito ta's tatahiin. So nilagay ko lang na may patch crease. So lagyan niyo lang ng note or minsan actually puwedeng tanggalin niyo na. Kasi ano lang naman, ta's note down niyo na lang na i-iron or i-press yung crease after. And then when you're, another thing when you're working with colored flats, kapag dark yung colors niyo, you can change the lines into a gray shade para may contrast pa rin siya, para hindi naman when you print it or when it's viewed sa computer, all black siya and the details would be invisible na. So, okey lang dito na it's understood na yung gray, yun yung outline. Alright? Doesn't mean na gray yung thread. Okay, just for illustration purposes. And then, let's move on to the accessory. So, bonus lang naman 'to, very basic sample of technical sheet for a pair of lace-up vulcanized sneakers. So, this is assuming it is from an existing design. So, the views are different since 3D irregular shape yung shoes. So, usually isometric view, top view, side view, back, and the sole yung kailangan. So, the template change, as you can see, because the sizing is different. Okay, so better to include all the sizing conventions. So kung sa shoes, ito yung grading niya, tapos may different conversions pa. Alright? And then the cm or the actual length of the shoe. And then you enumerate the parts. Since yung measurements kasi different sa shoes altogether. So different spec sheet naman siya. Dito you can just identify the parts and then enumerate the colors. So kung color 1, color 2, and then 3 to dapat. Okay. So same with garments, you can include branding specs. And since assumed na it's from an existing style na, you just include the actual photos of the product and the colorway. Okay. This is an example of a backpack naman. So really basic flat sketch din. So for bags, hindi niyo makikita yung wrinkles or yung slouch niya. So it has to be a block pattern like this one. So since bags are free size, we remove the section or the columns for sizes and grading. And we list down all the components na lang, like for the materials and the colorways. So you put the general measurements dito sa front page. As you can see here, you nilagay niyo na yung height, width, and then yung drop length for the handle. So sa second page naman, you can be as detailed as you want. So andito yung mas nitty-gritty or like for example, yung leather puller or interiors, pwede niyo ilagay dito. And then of course, yung references, construction references, if meron kayong mga peg, it's very helpful also to include that. Okay, para sa sample maker, helpful. Okay, and then for bags naman, laging quarter view yung colored flat sketch to show the colorways para kita yung size. Okay. So that's it. Now we move on to the complicated level. So I'll show this one. Okay. Kita ba? Okay, kita naman siya. So this is a much more complicated na tech pack. As you can see here, meron pang so page 1 of 16. You can see here from 4 pages, naging 16 pages. So you can see ito yung bill of materials sa first page and the sketch. So meron pang ito na yung swatches and all the accessories and notions na kailangan. Same din, you have a copyright disclaimer. Okay, so ito mas ano na siya, mas detailed. So and then bigger na yung flat sketch. So you can see ito yung internal details, yung parang x-ray view, makikita niyo yung stitches inside. Alright. Even the seams, different kinds of seams is enumerated. the SPI, the classing stitch, lock stitch, etc. And then the colorways. So ito, for example, ito yung example ng black or dark colored na flats. And then you still use the black line. So makita nyo, very invisible na yung details. Okay? So you can use a gray color. So ito na yung same as the artwork sheet natin. So you can see here the repeat print style. Yan. And then the brand name, brand logo, labels. Even the PVC or yung poly mailer, poly bag. And then this one, yung even the packaging specifications mas detailed. So makita niyo pa na may folding instructions. Ito yung tinitignan ni QC usually. Right? So, yeah. Then the enumeration or the different grading measurements na. So, yeah. 16 pages for an industry tech. Okay, I'll show another one. So here, teka lang, full screen. So this one naman is from the Manila Sewing Club. So yung jumpsuit PPE. So you can see here kung ilang pages siya. Pero the difference naman here is, ito yung flat sketch. Okay? Then they show the actual samples. Okay? The actual prototype. Different sides. Okay? And then ito na yung placement, color, materials, even the patterns are included. How you would cut and lay out it. Construction details. So very, very complicated and very detailed. So ito na yung difficulty level niya. Even the stitching, yan. Okay? Even the top stitching, and may operations breakdown pa. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi ko, packaging specs kanina. Alright? So, and then, if that's complicated, meron pang, ito na yung technical package na usually, provided by Miss Charlotte, used sa apparel production. Okay, share. Okay, here. So makita niyo yung different pages, sheets dito. So may design sheet, there's an illustration sheet. Okay, so this is another format, so an Excel file. So that's why yung flat sketch, dapat vector file siya. So, and transparent yung background, dapat yung outline. Or, basta pwede siyang PNG para easier siyang i-insert, okay, dito sa file. So, wala siyang white background. Okay, and then dapat as much as possible sana high res para pag ni-resize nyo ng ganito kaliit, hindi siya magpe-pixelize. Okay, so may fabric sheet, components, label and packing sheet. Okay, you can see here na meron ding item and vendor code. Okay, ito na yung detailed construction sheet. So, saka pa lang tayo dadating sa spec sheet. And then may cost sheet na operations breakdown. Okay, so this is another, ito na yung third level of, na siya, very difficult one. Okay, so actually, that's all. So yun na yung different levels of difficulty ng tech pack and the do's and don'ts ng flat sketches. As for online resources, these are the useful links. So sa fashionary.com, you can download templates. So meron din silang specific or may may croquis sila for tops. So different yung men's and women's croquis nila. Techpacks.co, you can also download an example ng of a sketch, technical tech pack. Technical tech. Okay, and WGSN, of course, um for the CAD flats. Okay, which you can, ano naman, you can actually practice on the WGSN. Pwedeng i-trace nyo siya pag nag-aaral kayo in Illustrator, para to hone your CAD or Illustrator skills. Okay, so that's it. Sorry, 12:05 na. Ay, ano. So, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Miss Trina.
Nella, thank you.
Yes, we will open the floor.
Overtime na.
No problem. To some Q&A. We are 115 strong today.
Wow.
Thank you everyone for
Amazing.
attending.
Yes, thank
Amazing
you.
session. All right, so we'll begin with a few questions. I have some students lined up. Also, for those who want to ask Miss Trina a question, you can simply type it up on our chat box. So we'll begin with Eliza Onrado.
Mhm.
Hi, Eliza.
Hi, Miss. Good morning po.
Morning.
I'd like to ask lang po for the tech pack. For example, if yung design po is detailed like with beadwork, do we also need to illustrate yung specific details like that or no na po since flats lang?
Preferably you include also the layout or yung design layout ng beadwork sa artwork specification page. So, for example, sa first page, pwedeng just the body lang of the garment para hindi rin siya you keep it clean. So yung silhouette lang yung makikita para rin hindi siya busy tignan sa flat sketch. Sa technical pa. And then you just indicate sa notes na merong beadwork. And then you include it sa dun sa other pages na.
Thanks, Miss.
For the beadwork, no need naman to draw the beads as na parang rin na flat sketch ha. Hindi na ganun. Ano lang, kahit yung basic diagram or outline ng pattern. Yun lang. Tapos you can put mga kunwari reference ng beads, pwede niyong lagay yung either actual sample or actual photo. Tapos lagyan niyo lang siya ng mga arrows or marks.
Yeah, di ba, yes, Ms. Trina, kasi much of our
Yes.
students, they do a lot of 8x8 samples. So they can take a high resolution photo and then scan it and add it
Yes.
to the tech pack.
Does that go
Yes,
the
it
same
can.
for paintings? Because some students are doing some artwork, some hand sketches, some digital prints. It's the same concept.
Yes, miss. If handmade yung print, they
Mm.
can just attach the photos, artwork specifications. Tapos they just leave the na lang, blank. Tapos usually kasi baka some of them parang may special placement sa panels, 'di ba? So you can include that sa na lang sa second page.
Mhm.
So for example, dito sa back of the dress. So for example, you paint basta meron kayong artwork. Tapos gusto nyo dito lang sa side na to, sa left side. So sa spec sheet, you just leave this blank. Pero dito sa second page or sa artwork page nyo ilagay. And then specify nyo, dito na naka-superimpose yung artwork. And then may arrow, and then nandito yung pinaka-artwork.
And then pwede sa side panel, Ms. Trina, that they can add it. So dito sa may colorways naka-indicate.
Yes, pwede rin. Yes,
Yes.
oo. Same din dito para
Parang
you see
thumbnail
also,
effect.
the colored sample.
Colored sample,
Yep.
yes.
Right. Thank you, Eliza. Next, we have Chico Asilo. You have a question for Miss Trina?
For the design of your fabric, so we place it in the artwork sheet of the tech pack. What if you have a textured fabric design, like example, there's fabric manipulation in my design. how do we draw the fabric manipulation as a sketch, or do we just take a photo of the fabric design?
Oh, okay. Sige. Thank you for your question. Um, sige, what I can recommend is if the fabric manipulation is custom or talagang iha-handmade siya, what you can do is you can create a diagram. Parang ganito, black and white diagram lang of the pattern. Okay, so for example, ito, kunwari, may parts dito na knitted or parang, ano ba yun, beaded, ganyan, textured.
Embroidery.
Yeah, embroidery. So sa artwork or diagram, you can use it na plain lang, as is, black and white.
Mhm.
Pero dito sa reference, you can, yun nga, yung scanned image, you can insert it here and then you put arrows na lang. Like for example, itong brown, dito nakalagay ano yung thread niya. Pero dito, ano yung technique. Like for example, yun nga, kung embroidered siya or knitted or patchwork, just put arrows na lang to show the yung different textures. So no need to draw the actual texture ng knit or actual texture nung embroidery na may thread talaga here. So ano lang siya, keep it flat lang and then the actual reference. Actually, mas maganda talaga pag may actual reference. Para hindi na yun na direct direct it's a direct instruction na.
So it's okay to Photoshop it to that, the color reference section.
Yes, pwede naman to Photoshop,
Mhm.
manipulate, yeah. If you want to put yung actual effects, 3D
Yeah,
effects.
because they're required, the Crea class is required to do manipulations, actual manipulations, so we can use it for this
Mm-mm.
page.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you, Chico.
Miss.
Sophia Cabaron, you're next.
Um, TechPack po ba is an application, and how are we going to download it po?
Sorry.
Can you repeat your question?
TechPack po ba is an application, and how are we going to download it po?
TechPack is not an application. It is a document, a template na you can actually create from scratch. Okay, so
Oh.
so para siyang sheet. It's a document. So ang pwede mo ma-download is yung flat sketch sa WGSN. Actually, not sure kasi online if merong downloadable na reliable na tech fact sheet. Pero dun sa online resources, here, wait, I'll show you sa end ng presentation. Check this website na lang. Sa Fashionary, sa techfacts.co, if they have templates for the spec sheets or tech.
Or you can do it
It's-
from scratch,
yeah.
no? Just from
Yeah.
Word or Excel or yeah.
Yeah. Although it's recommended na Excel or Illustrator or Lectra. Actually, kahit PowerPoint, pwede rin.
Kaya.
Oo, kaya din. Yun nga, tama si Miss Lala, better to start from scratch kasi since you're all starting out, para you get the feel naman of creating it talaga instead of getting from the internet. Okay.
Thank you,
Miss.
Sophia.
Thank you.
po.
Geneva, you have a question for Miss Trina?
Hi, Miss.
Hello.
Ask ko lang po yung sa composition of the fabric. Like, does it have to be specific? Yung may blend, yung cotton, yung gano'n. Yung percentage siya, Miss.
Mhm. Ano lang to, actually the example, I don't know if Miss Nella, if it is required, are you requiring ba material composition?
As much as best effort, as much as possible. Because I think a lot of them have taken textiles already. So
Okay.
yeah, we will ask for that. Yeah,
Mhm.
just to
So
get used
yun.
to it through
Yeah.
writing and researching what their
Mhm.
fabric is.
Kasi sa retail and manufacturing, very important na you be accurate sa material
Mhm.
composition and also sa description din ng names. Ito rin yung sa local kasi 'di ba may different language tayo sa fashion industry. So yung Katrina, hindi siya Katrina sa abroad. Parang dito lang siya ginagamit. So sa description also be mindful of using yung mga ganong
Local
local
slang.
jargon. 'Di ba yung mga
Oo.
Ponzi, ganyan.
Make it
as
official.
yeah.
Yeah,
As student
official
ako,
name.
ganun din ako. Syempre, 'di ba,
Yeah.
pag bumili ka, Katrina to or Gina Seth, ganyan. So, iba siya sa abroad. Iba rin yung terms ng supplier. So, better to ask na lang din and research.
May I add something with textiles?
Go,
Ayan,
Miss DK.
Miss DK, go.
Yun, since tama si Miss Trina, yun nga, as a buyer, we really work closely with Miss Trina as a designer, with the designers in this. So, yun nga, yung fabric composition, usually pinapatest pa yan in a retail setting. So, important siya kasi merong mga laws. Kunwari, i-export mo siya, may mga laws sa ibang bansa na i-declare yung fiber content kasi yung iba, flammable, ganun, meron siyang mga risks involved.
Correct.
Yan. So, if you plan to, receive clients abroad, tapos magpapa-DHL kayo or stuff like that, tatanungin talaga nila. Yun siya. Yun ang purpose niya. And syempre, like anything na successful, replicable yung system nyo. So, yan, that's a good practice na ilog yung lahat ng process and procedures dun sa ginamit nyo for your collection. That's all.
Ayan, tama si Miss DK pala buyer. So, siya yung nakakatanggap ng spec sheets ng mga designers. At siya din yung mag-check if correct yung information. So, yun. So, may mga instances, di ba, Miss DK, na before parang nababalik yung isang buong truck ng delivery kasi mali yung material composition na naka-declare. So,
Yeah.
yun.
Depende pa per country.
Yeah. Thanks, Miss DK.
Thank you for your input, DK. Next we have, and thank you, Geneva. Chelsea Vizcara, your question.
Hi, Miss. When we create an original embroidered artwork, like in our designs, do we also need to specify the number of stitches required and like the exact Pantone shades for the threads?
Yung exact stitches, parang no need na kasi kung original embroidery, baka ano na siya, as separate technical sheet na yun for embroidery. Pero kung for the tech pack, dun sa artworks page, yung thread, better na ilagay mo yung exact shade. Not usually, sorry. So, kaya dito sa skirt yan. So, you asked also din the supplier kasi different yung color reference ng thread. Kasi usually meron kang swatch card na binibigay yung supplier for the threads. So, pero although safer na yung Pantone system, pero at least they can match it with their own system na lang. So, kahit color ng threads lang, wag na yung exact stitching kasi na yun very complicated na yun. Lalo na kung hindi naman siya gagawin ng supplier. If you're the ones who are going to make the embroidery, no need.
Thank you, Chelsea. Jasha, you're next.
Miss, is there like an example for like flats for knitted fabrics?
Knitwear. Yeah.
Knitwear.
Yes.
Sa knitwear, same lang din. It has to be flat and walang curves. So, syempre kahit alam natin na iba yung bagsak ng fabric ng knit, pero when you're creating the flat sketch, treat it as in 2D sketch lang talaga na wala yung effects nung fabric. So, kung ito, sabihin natin, itong dress na to, knitted siya. So, sa first page, same pa rin. You just indicate na knitted yung fabric dito sa material composition. And then sa second page mo na ilagay, i-superimpose yung knit texture if you want dito sa colorways. Yeah. And then indicate na lang siguro yung sewing notes mo, ganyan, construction details mo na it's knitted.
Miss, I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Miss, what if yung, kunyari, change of mind ka dun sa fabric mo, but then you've already given the like tapos na yung tech pack?
Nako,
Nasubmit na.
wala nang bawian. Um,
Depende
wala
sa kontrata.
depende sa kontrata. Tsaka, pag retail, pag mas, for example, a startup business, kung meron kang direct communication with your supplier, siguro
Mm.
pwedeng ihabol. Lalo na
Mhm.
kung hindi naman yung deadline niya matagal pa.
Mm-mm.
So,
Yeah.
maybe you can email him or her, a revised spec sheet din ha. Hindi pwedeng, for example, you sent this one knit yung nakalagay. Tapos mag-email ka, ay, sorry, change fabric to knit. Pero yung document na nasa kanya, change fabric to woven linen, ganyan. Pero yung document na nasa kanya, knitwear pa din.
Mm-mm.
Magkakaroon ng miscommunication. So better na i-send mo yung revised spec sheet na nakalagay na yung correct fabric.
Thank you, Jasha. We have
Thank you po.
some questions on the chat box from Darius. Is this also applicable for couture, Miss Trina?
Yes. Oo. As in, yung tech pack naman is universal kasi siya nga yung blueprint of your designs. So, ang mag-iiba lang is siguro yung the number of pages, yung measurements, 'di ba? Yung yung artwork specifications. I think universal naman, tama ba, Miss Nella?
Yeah.
And apparel professors. Yeah. Universal document naman siya.
Agree, yeah.
Thank you. Question from Bithya. Will this be posted on Big Sky? Depending on your teacher, but for all CREA students, this will be posted. This is already posted on Big Sky for your reference, and we're also posting a recorded version of Miss Trina's webinar today. And preferred software, this was answered earlier. You can do this on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or you can download. Next question is from Leah Nunez. Leah, are you ready?
Yes, hello po. Hi, Miss Trina.
Hello.
I remember po kasi sa CAD 1, di ba gumawa kami ng tech pack for finals. Is it okay if we use that template like yung if we have to do a tech pack for one of our other subjects?
Pwede naman, pero that's really the basic template. Parang itong template na I showed you and the professors would share naman with you guys or a revised, mas complete version siya. So, but depende rin also with the requirements of your professor. Pero pwede rin na siyang starting point.
Like we can use it as a basis?
Yes, oo.
Okay, thank you.
But also ask your professors then what are the requirements and yung additional information that is needed.
Okay, thank you, Miss.
Thanks.
Miss Trina?
Yes?
Yeah, if I may add, yung sa question earlier about Darius, that's why it's very important also the tech pack, especially rin for couture, because for some reason, mawawalan tayo ng employees. Like for example, pattern maker would resign, and then the sewer would resign. So if there is a repeat order, it's very useful if we have the tech pack for customer also kapag nasa couture business tayo, para we can go back to those information. So I think it's needed also for couture businesses.
Thanks,
Thank
Miss
you.
Charlotte.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Miss. I'm so glad the other professors are here to
Yes.
chime in. And we have one more question before we wrap up. Isley, how do we do it if the design is purely made from patchwork, ruffles, embroidery, appliques? This was asked earlier. I think they're really concerned, Trins, because a lot of the graduating students have a lot of manipulations.
Yes, Miss.
Yeah.
I think for ruffles, patchwork, kung part siya ng construction, like this example, yung jumpsuit niya na may mga very complicated na mga layers. You can see here na sinama niya yun sa flat sketch, which is okay as long as part siya ng garment. Okay, is part siya ng construction ng garment. So kung fully ruffled yung dress mo, you have to show the ruffles. Kasi yun yung silhouette, yun yung actual garment. Pero yung applique, embroidery, kung part lang siya ng ornamentation nga, pwede na siguro siyang ilagay sa sa artwork specification or sa other pages. Pero kung patchwork ruffles, yeah, you should include it sa design or sa flat sketch. And pag yung ruffles, baka kasi maano sila na no, hindi pwede yung mga may shadow or yung may masyadong excessive lines. Pero kung ruffles naman, basta lagay nyo lang na it has to look na ruffled siya. Hindi naman kailangan flat din yung ruffles. Dapat magmukha siyang actual garment naman.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Trina. Jingay, we're ready to wrap up.
Okay, so I think, yes.
I have a question po.
Who's this?
Lara.
Go
All right,
ahead.
Lara, one more. Okay, go ahead.
What platform do we use to make tech packs when you're working in the Philippines? Do they ask for what program, or we can just use Adobe freely?
As a basic, you can use Adobe Illustrator, pero it depends din sa systems ng different companies. Like some would, pag manufacturing, iba Excel, yung tech pack nila. Others, I don't know kung may nagko-Corel pa, pero before we started Corel, and then Adobe Illustrator, usually yung ginagamit ng other companies. So you na lang you ask. Pero it's good na rin na you practice in different versions or applications. And then yung, of course, yung Lectra, diba? Yun. Better na you have, parang may skill level na kayo with that. Para hindi na kayo masusurprise when you work.
Thank you, Lara.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's our last question.
Okay, thank you, Trina. I noticed everyone were asking questions on specific to project submission, which is our class for Creo 1 and Apparel Creative. And then there are questions that are industry standard. So when Ms. Trina was answering your questions, much of it are industry standard because the webinar was really meant for you to see how the industry will use the tech pack, right? For specifics on submission, Ms. Nella and myself will give you instructions on what we would be needing from you. And then for the other subjects like ApproPro, which is more detailed because they have construction, I'm sure Ms. Charlotte will be open to indulge you on all of your requirements, okay? But for the industry standard, that's the sample that Ms. Trina gave, as well as where she got all her references. Okay, so now, thank you everyone for attending. Honestly, great turnout. We have Hamu here. I saw a few other alumni. It's always great to see other people apart from our students. I see Frosh who are here, which I'm sure, they're taking pattern and they're very interested in the tech pack. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's past lunch. So before we close the webinar, let's just take a gallery photo. Can everyone turn on? Miss Maku, are we ready for a gallery photo?